news today with Jordan Montgomery leaving Scott Boras as his agent, and especially after the way that the offseason went, where it seemed like the big Boras 4 took so long to sign. Immediately, everyone kind of jumped to the conclusion that everyone's going to leave Scott Boras. Where do you think things stand? And do you think Scott still has that he's going to get these top guys and going to keep them for their entire careers?
Well, let's be clear. Scott Boras is the greatest baseball agent of all time. There can't even be a close second and he usually wins, which is why he's so good at this. And by the way, I talked to him virtually every day for like 2 months when the Orioles were thinking of drafting Ben McDonald. That's how far back I go with Scott Boras. Oh my gosh. But what he's become since is just amazing. And yes, I don't think there's a way around it. He had a difficult offseason as far as getting this guy signed, getting them on time, and ending up with far less money than we thought. And I'm not shocked that Jordan Montgomery did that. You have every right to change your agent for whatever reason, but I don't think this is a sign that Scott Boras has lost his fastball and people are going to start leaving him here all the time. I just don't see that happening. I think this was an aberrant offseason for him. And I think that's probably not good news for the teams that he'll make a comeback with his next line of free agents.
Yeah, I was going to say, Oriole fans, knowing he has Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, and Corbin Burns, like you said, Scott Boras usually wins in the negotiation. So from that perspective, they probably aren't happy. They'd like to see someone else. But from a player perspective, it is hard not to go with the best.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, Scott, I mean, it's his body of work, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you look at. And you go back to Ben McDonald, you were talking about decades, right? So to Tim, it's a great point with it. But obviously, with some players like Jordan Montgomery, it leaves a sour taste for him specifically because this is a guy that was looking to lock up a more longer-term deal and to kind of solidify and not be playing on a one-year contract. But Kevin, speaking of pitching injuries, I think you wanted to touch on. So speaking of pitchers, I think we have a lot of pitchers injuries we need to touch on.
Yeah, Tim, I think it's a really controversial point throughout baseball right now about all the pitching injuries we've seen, the elbow soreness. Obviously, here in Baltimore, Kyle Bradish is the topic of conversation, but it seems like every other day, every 3 days, we get news of another pitcher being shut down for soreness. And there's been a lot of controversy about the pitch clock and throwing hard. And I'm just curious about your opinion on the whole matter and if we're going to start to see almost a shift in how some of these teams manage their pitchers moving forward.
Yeah, I am really concerned where we are. Just too many good pitchers are getting hurt. And I'm sorry, I blame the industry for this. We are telling pitchers at a very young age, you need to throw as hard as you can on every single pitch, max effort on every pitch. Your strikeout rate has to be really high. You have to miss bats. Otherwise, you're not going to the big leagues. Your spin rate has to be at a certain rate. Otherwise, you're not getting to the big leagues. Just follow me on this one for a second, fellas. This is where we are on this. Several years ago, a veteran major league infielder on a rehab assignment in the minor leagues was playing third base. There are 2 outs in an inning, 0-2 pitch to the batter who fouls out to the guy in foul territory. The pitcher comes up to him after the inning and said, "Why didn't you drop that ball on purpose? I had him 0-2. I need to strike people out if I'm going to get to the big leagues." How can that be that this is where we are now? Why are there so many injuries? Because every pitcher is being told, just throw as hard as you can. And if you get hurt, we got a million guys behind you. We have to change this. And I think we're going to have to start in the Little League. We're going to have to start telling 12-year-olds, you don't have to throw as hard as you can. You don't have to put that kind of torque on your arm. You don't have to throw a curveball at 12. Hit a bat, put the ball in play, and let's see if we can get some easy outs. That's where I think it has to start because there's no stopping, unfortunately, where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the part that we sit here. And you're right. It's a way different day and age. And all the pitchers that even, Jim Palmer being here in Baltimore calling the games, wealth of knowledge on pitching, right? But pitching nowadays compared to how pitchers pitched years ago, it's different because you're not seeing the guys the 20-game winners. You're not seeing guys go a ton past 200, 250 innings. Like, it's not the same game anymore. But you're right. The thing is, can you strike a guy out? Who cares if you walk the guy? Can you put him away where he can't put the ball in play? And that's just such a different mindset. And you're right. This isn't something that is just at the big league level now, Tim. This is kids back in high school. And I remember in the 2014 draft, and we had Jeff Passan on talking about this. Tyler Kolek was the second overall pick out of high school through 100. Dylan Bundy, another high pick for the Orioles. It seems like at a young age for some of these guys, yes, it got the attention, but their arms broke down. And unfortunately, that is something that's occurring continuously at the big league level. So I guess we'll have to figure out what happens.